About 1/3 of CFOs see the U.S. election impacting investments. That's according to a news survey out by Duke University, along with a couple of the Federal Reserve banks. Monetary policy, inflation, and labor market, all top concerns over the next 12 months. Nina Trentman joining us right now. I'm told she's senior editor here at Bloomberg, but she's also, more importantly, the author of a new newsletter here at Bloomberg called CFO Briefing. All right, Nina, so this means you really have your finger on the pulse of what the CFOs are going to be saying. Let's start off with the survey, because I thought it was interesting. First, let's start with the worries. They all basically saying, I guess, the same things everyone's worried about, which is, with the Fed, the labor market, inflation, et cetera. Yeah. So they're still worried about that, right?
Yeah, the combination of things that people are worried about hasn't really changed very much. Like the top main things, high interest rates, inflation, and then also labor, both in availability of labor as well as the cost of labor. But then also, if you look at sort of the optimism rating overall, out of on a scale from 0 to 100, CFOs sort of clock in at 60, which is, you can talk a little bit about the glass being half full, half empty. 60 is still not too bad.
Yeah. Well, provide some context for us. How does this compare to, say, June 2016, before a previous presidential election?
Yeah, that is an interesting one. So for this survey specifically, they asked about sort of how does the upcoming election in November influence your investment decisions. And what we're seeing now is that CFOs are saying, about a third are saying it is impacting decisions first and foremost. And then 28% are saying it's leading us to either delay, postpone. Some even are saying scrap investment plans, which of course is a sizable number. Interestingly, going back to 2016, when Duke also asked this question, there was a higher proportion of CFOs who said that. So there was 47% at the time. So you see basically, while still it's a third of companies that are saying this at this point, it's lower than in 2016. And of course, you could argue whether the stakes are higher this time as they were in 2016.
But the overall takeaway, though, from the survey, despite all these concerns, is that they still are optimistic for the future, which I guess they have to be or they wouldn't have a job. But the idea, they do seem like, okay, look, we're still going to be here. We're still going to make money. We're still going to find a way to navigate. And they also talked about some of the big trends, AI and some of the other things that could, I guess, provide a tailwind, right?
Yeah, the interesting thing is with regards to sort of optimism levels, that basically sort of they haven't necessarily declined very much from the past quarter. So whilst we've seen consumer sentiment index and other indexes for consumers declining, you haven't seen the same amount of a decline for CFOs. So I think for many U.S. CFOs, things are still reasonably fine. Of course, there are things that they would like to be better. So for example, if you think about their forecast for GDP, it's a bit lower than what they said last year this time. So we are seeing this slowing in the economy, but it's also they're not forecasting a recession, which is interesting. Given that, of course, a year ago we were all talking about hard landing, soft landing, whatever landing, and
now we don't talk about it at all.
Well, what we do talk about all the time is AI and automation and how that may end up costing people some of their jobs. What are they saying about that?
Yeah, that was interesting that there was basically sort of across the board openness towards using automation and specifically artificial intelligence. So CFOs are saying that they want to invest in automation. They say that they think that they can be better in terms of the product that they deliver, plus also then pricing. Interestingly enough, also a third of respondents were saying that they see AI at some point substitution jobs, which of course is this big question as to, well, will AI make all of our jobs just better, or will it also result in some of us not having jobs anymore?
I think I know the answer to that. But when we get to the point, too, I mean, if all this does come to fruition with AI and stuff, there haven't been all that vocal about whether that's going to replace jobs. I feel like a lot of the CFOs and CEOs, they kind of talk about automation, AI, but they don't really say, okay, this is basically going to make things cheaper for us on the labor side.
Yeah, many of them say that basically it will sort of free up people from doing tedious tasks and spreadsheets.
Like having a job.
Tedious tasks? Isn't that all of our jobs?
All the things that sort of people would agree with that probably they would love for an AI to do. But of course, at some point, sort of if you think about it from a CFO perspective, labor is for many of them amongst the biggest cost items that they have. And so I would be surprised if we wouldn't see some substitution, as they said in the survey.
All right, Nina. Well, you know what? If jobs weren't tedious, they would be hobbies. Nina Trentman, senior editor at Bloomberg and author of Bloomberg's new newsletter called CFO Briefing.